Hi everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to give you a backyard garden tour because everything is looking fantastic. Now one of the focus points, I had planted some plants 2 or 3 seasons ago. When I planted these, I planted them with a vision in mind of what they'd look like as they matured. And that to me has become a reality. But I want to get your opinion of what you think of it, and if you would have planted something else, what would it be? So the first plant I want to talk about is this pinnacle hydrangea. This pinnacle hydrangea is 2 of the pinnacle hydrangeas that I propagated, and if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up here for you to go catch, and I'll meet you there. Now the thing that I don't know about this pinnacle hydrangeas is that I don't know the variety. I do know that the height and the width of these at full maturity right now are probably about 5 feet to 4 feet tall and wide. So far it has been doing great with strong light over in this direction. So I do know that it'll handle the light. However, it does get some shade. As you can see right now, it's getting some filtered light right now, and it's just doing really great. Here's a close look of what the foliage actually looks like, and I absolutely love this red stem. This is so beautiful and makes it look really unique. Plus there is a little bit of red in the foliage as well. But like I said, there's 2 of them, and one of them is so much smaller. If I was to venture to guess what type of pinnacle hydrangea this was, based on the plant that I took the cuttings from and the size of the flowers that were on them when I actually took the cuttings for this plants, I would have to say between the 2, the best guess would be a pinnacle hydrangea limelight prime. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. But yeah, and it does look like it's starting to get, or at least forming, its flower buds. And the plant that I took the cuttings from, right now they actually are in bloom. Just the beginning of stages, so I do know that this one blooms right now, which we are in mid-June. Now pinnacle hydrangeas, they're not really picky when it comes to the soil. They do require at least 6 hours of sunlight, but they can get away with about 4. Now it does look like possibly it might get just a little bit too much sun. Maybe this would be a great option to plant with morning sun, afternoon shade over by where my hostas are, where my clematis, my Elsa splat, and my Nellie Moser is. But let me know in the comments below. Then right over here I have, this is a Butylon megapotabum. Now I may be butchering the name, so I'll put it down here for you. But this one actually is more of an ivy. So it does need a trellis, and it will grow about 10 feet tall. And in more tropical areas, this one will do fantastic all year round outside. But here in Zone 8B, because our temperatures really drop down to -20, this one here, you definitely have to overwinter it. And it stays evergreen in here. It is starting to bloom and form its bud, but here is one. And then at the very bottom here actually grows these yellow. So they're these tiny, dainty flowers, and it's just gorgeous when it is in full bloom. And then right here I have my lilac tree. It is done blooming, so I'm going to put a side-by-side picture so that you can see what exactly it looked like when it was in full bloom earlier in May. And it was just gorgeous, but it's got some very fainted blue right now. But this is a beautiful lilac tree that I've been working on to get it healthy, and this year just bloomed fantastic. So I really love this lilac tree a lot. And this lilac tree, this California lilac tree, is extremely drought tolerant. Now they can grow up to about 12 feet tall, but this one, I've had it in this yard for probably, I want to say at least 16 years, and it really hasn't grown a heck of a lot. But anyway, down here, and hopefully I don't lose light, but right over here is my hoplite oregano, And this is one of my favorite. It's getting a little bit more sun than it would like, but it still performs pretty good. As you can see, the flowers are now starting to come out. Now, if it gets more damp lighting with kind of a little bit more sun protection, the flowers can get twice the size, maybe about the size where my fingers are. And it's just one of my all-time favorite plants. Then over here, the chickens have beat up on this one, but it still will recover fine. But this lavender and this lavender, both are very drought tolerant. In fact, everything right in here, in this whole entire area right here, is extremely drought tolerant. And that's what I love about all of these plants. But the lavenders here are called Lavandula angustifolia. And these will get about probably maybe up to 3 feet by 3 feet. They're supposed to run in the smaller scale of lavenders, but they are extremely fragrant. So I would highly recommend these. And, you know, lavender is all pollinators, so it's always a good thing to have those pollinators. And those are fairly new. I just planted those along with the magic carpet spirea over there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But right here in the center, I planted quite a few of crocosimas. And these are Emily Mackenzie crocosimas. And these do not grow very tall. They pretty much are about the height that they're going to get, and then they'll get flowers, and they'll start blooming more towards the middle of summer. Over here I have a Russian sage, and then I have a blue holly in the back. The Russian sage isn't getting enough sunlight, but these ones are supposed to be in the smaller scale when it comes to Russian sage. But I'm giving them a chance, and if I can't get them to be upright, then I will probably remove them, add something else. And speaking of, look at this. These are my little troublemakers. And as you can see, my blue shrimp, how poorly it's doing. I had to fix it the other night because they practically dug them down. But it's still a beautiful flower. Look at how beautiful that blue is. And it's got these seeds. So supposedly it's considered an annual here in the Zone 8B. But these are zoned from 5 to 9, so it should be considered a perennial here. But it's got the seed here that will fall down and they will reseed themselves, provided the chickens don't eat those too. Then the sea holly over here, as you can see, it is getting its flower buds. Now the sea holly is supposed to be pretty thorny from what I've seen, but this one doesn't seem to have those thorns. So hopefully I'm getting away with sea holly that's thornless. We'll find out. Stem here was actually laying down. I had to pin it up. And so that's why it's kind of crooked, because the flowers were trying to reach the sun. But it obviously gets enough sun for these to bloom. And then right here I have my magic carpet spirea. This is in the smaller scale. And this one will get about 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. They can get a little bit taller depending on their environment. This do require a lot of sun, but they can tolerate some shade. But it's a perfect plant for small gardens. So you can do this in a small garden or in a container, and it would just perform beautifully. And then up here, we're going to go into my black lace elderberry. Look at how large that is. And look at how full and big that is. Now, this is coming to the end of its blooming season, but look at how big those flowers are. Now, they do get even larger. And once they stop blooming and the blooms start falling off, these little tiny blooms, then they get, and I don't know how well you can see those, but do you see that little berries there? And there's a lot of purpose for this plant. I just love it for the foliage and for the flowers, and I will be cutting it back as soon as it's done flowering, because it really is shading a lot of my plants down here. And speaking of that, I have a Coreopsis pot of gold. As you can see how much is shading it, but it's still going to bloom beautifully. And then I have black-eyed Susan over here. I have a white cone flower here. I have some echinacea, and then some more echinacea over here. And as you can see, they're already starting to get their buds. So these will be around all summer long, just filling this up about to right here and just looking gorgeous. And then of course I have my yarrow. Isn't that just beautiful? I just love the way it sprawls out and just looks gorgeous. Over here I have my hot lip salvia. This is a hummingbird magnet. Highly recommend it. It's easy care, no fuss. I mean, I do trim it back in the springtime, but I love salvias because of their hardiness, because of their toughness, and they just are great pollinators. And this one will get in full bloom later on in the season. Then up here I have my shihuli rosebush, and this one I've never been able to get it to go circular, but yeah, it's just a gorgeous rose. As you can see, the multi-colors, and every bloom starts off with yellow and or white, and then it turns into this rosy mixed pink. I just absolutely love it. And then over here is my shade garden, and I have spoken many times about this, so I'll keep it short, but it is looking absolutely beautiful this year. Now, I will change out my coral bell right here because it really gets camouflaged with the soil, and I just really want something more of a pop right there. So I will do coral bells, but just a different color. Now, the hostas that I absolutely love, of course I love all my hostas, but this June hosta is one I would highly recommend, but I would also highly recommend to keep it with morning sun, afternoon shade. But look at how beautiful it complements my macrophylla. Now this is a broomstruck macrophylla, and look at how many blooms are on it. Oh my gosh, I am so happy this year because of how green the foliage is. And again, this has red stems on it. Do you see those red stems? That's what makes this macrophylla such a unique flower. Now, most of the time it has multicolors. This year, looks like it's coming out a little bit more pink. And so it's just looking stunning this year. And I just love it. I'm so happy with it. I almost lost it one year. So to see it this healthy, oh my gosh, I can't even express how happy it makes me. And then right here, I do have my Elsa Splat. I always call it Alyssa Splat, but it's Elsa Splat and Anelli Moser. And this year, oh my gosh, it just has struggled. The blooms have come out like this, and then they just kind of peter out and nothing happens to it. So maybe this would be a really great spot for my pinnacle hydrangea. What do you guys think? Wouldn't that be great? Now, in mid-afternoon, it does get a lot of sun that comes through that fence. So maybe that would be sufficient sunlight for a hydrangea. Really am curious as to what your opinion would be. Then over here, just going to go over these really quick. This is Hakone Japanese grass, and it's now starting to cascade over. I love it. I want to plant more. I have a pirate's hosta over here. This is a Komodo dragon. The foliage is going to be kind of a purplish as it gets older. That's going to be a giant. I have my island breeze. I have my blue angel that is just looking stunning. That's also going to be about 46 inches in diameter. And then my Hudson Bay here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a full matured size. And it's just looking beautiful. I just absolutely love all my hostas here. And then I have, this is a Mara variegata hosta, and I love the fact that it just kind of gets swirly. It's the leaves, if you notice, they're not perfectly straight. They kind of curl around. And I just love it, and I love that white because it just pops in my yard. And then over there I have, it's possible, could be another blue angel. And then over here, it could be also another blue angel. Blue ivory over here. This is also very gorgeous. Will get much bigger over time. And then I still have that bishop weed back there. I've been keeping it at bay. We'll see what happens. And so far so good. And it does have its flower now, so you can kind of see a little bit, it's more of a seed head than anything, and they're generally a little whiter, but because this one isn't getting as much sun, that's why the seed heads or flower heads are, just kind of a green. But I love the plant. I just think that, and I love the foliage. I think the foliage is beautiful, but it spreads. So I'm trying to keep it at bay. But outside of that, this is looking fantastic. And one thing that I never mentioned in this yard is this tree, and I hope the sun doesn't get in the way, but this is my Japanese maple tree, and I planted this when it was probably about 8 feet tall. And I love this because the limbs on them are these vibrant red, as you can see right here. See that, how red that is? Now at the very top of the tree, the limbs are really red like this. But if it gets a lot of shade, then they start turning green like this. But outside of that, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous tree, and I absolutely love it. And what I like more about this tree is that the foliage on them is just super dainty. And so when fall comes around and the leaves drop, it doesn't really make a big mess in my yard. It's so subtle that I hardly even notice it. I don't even rake it. That's how subtle it is. But anyway, let's move on. Right here is, I don't know the name of this plant. I'll put it right here on the screen for you. But somebody mentioned that it starts off as a variegated plant. However, it can go into its original color. That's why it's kind of like a two-tone, because this plant and this plant is the same plant. It just, for some reason, gradually went into this dark green. So supposedly that's something that this plant can do. I think having that bottom variegated with the green on top is kind of nice. Then over here is my St. John's wort, and look how many blooms are on it. It is just gorgeous. I absolutely love it. Look at all those blooms. That is just... This plant here is just a great performer for me. You have to trim it now and then back because it can get pretty big with all of its flower buds, but I just absolutely love it. And over here I have my lilac tree, and as you can see, it's really pruned back, and I really cut it back because it was struggling this year. I mean, I couldn't even get the foliage to not whimper. And finally, I decided maybe all the new foliage that was coming up down here was taking up a lot of its energy. So I took all that out, added new dirt, gave it some really good fertilizer, and all the leaves popped up. But as you can see, it still lost a lot of its branches. So hopefully by next year it'll be resolved and it'll be fine. I'm going to take you up on top of my chicken coop because everything is flowering there, and that way you can see that. This is a bit of a climb. Well, since I'm here, look at all of my lettuce here. And this is all just from last year's growth. I never planted one iota of this. And what's really weird also is that I'm getting some mushrooms in here. Now, I don't think these are edible mushrooms, but nevertheless, they're mushrooms. I've never seen mushrooms on top of my chicken coop. So there must be some kind of nutrient that the lettuce is putting out that's creating the mushrooms. But let me see if I can get through all this so that you can see what this looks like now. Look at how gorgeous. Look at that one. Isn't this really beautiful? Look at how large that cedium is. My creeping thyme right over here is doing fantastic. All of the cedium are doing great. Absolutely looks stunning from down below. My star jasmine that I planted here, I have 3 plants here. I have one here, here, and there. And this one is now starting to get its buds. It's a little behind only because this area gets more shaded, but it will be in full bloom, and it just makes for a fantastic screening from your neighbors. So if you are looking for a screening, this is the perfect plant. The more sun, the more vigorous it grows, but the more shade, the slower it grows. But it's still very stunning. And what I did here, Kroger had some of these, I don't know what you call these, they're kind of like a lattice. I just have a cyclone fence behind here, and so I just kind of pegged it in to the cyclone, and then I tied them up with zip ties down here by the cyclone fence, and it really helped with screening off the neighbors with this star jasmine. And now you can see what it looks like from this direction looking at the chicken coop. Now, about a week ago, all of the roses look absolutely stunning, but that's okay. They'll continue to bloom and look beautiful throughout the summer, but at least you get an idea what it looks like. And now you can see where the star jasmine is and how much screening it does. Now I'm going to turn you around and I'm going to bring you to my large pergola. Now I've shown this, but as you can see, I put cushions on it. Now the reason why I chose striped cushions is because this rug here, which is recycled plastic, it has like this hint of yellow in it. I showed it on my previous video, but the reason why I chose those cushions is because it's very subtle, but it's got this little bit of yellow, kind of goldish color, and then it's got the gray to black and white in there. That is why I chose that. Okay, now I'm going to walk over in this direction. So over here really quick, some coral bells, heucheras, a little lime hosta with beautiful now purple flowers on it. I have a Flamethrower Serrano here, and then another Coreospis, which is Main Street La Rambla. And as I mentioned on my previous video with my Spartacus hosta here, I had mentioned how the foliage would turn out a little bit darker green with more pronounced yellow on the rims. And now you can see how that has happened. And then I have a hosta caboton. But everything here is doing fantastic. And if you haven't seen my video, I'll just link it here for you to go catch. So that's where this is at. Now let's go over here, because this is one of my pride and joy plants. It's my rock rose. And this one here will grow 3 feet by 3 feet all the way around and tall. However, I do prune it back just so that it stays away from the walking path, and it just looks beautiful here. And this is a perennial. This is also a medicinal plant. Now this one here, and I mentioned before how beautiful and how much they remind me of a crepe paper. They are just gorgeous, and they are a pollinator. You can see the tiny little bees working heavily. I've never seen bees that tiny before, have you? Look at that. Look at how tiny these are. And they have wings. I guess old bees have wings, but they are busy little bodies. But you can see it's got a ton of buds still. Now, what happens with this rock rose is that it'll bloom like this during the day, and then the petals will fall off, and a whole flush of flowers will come out in the morning again. So it just will pretty much bedheads itself, and I just love it for that reason. When I actually created the platform of this large pergola and built both of these containers over here, and I planted them, I ended up planting the Tanga clematis along with the star jasmine. Now when I planted them, they were very, very small plants. I just sat back and I tried to envision of what it would look like once it continued to mature. This year is the perfect vision of what I had envisioned. Now, something you want to keep in mind when you are intertwining plants like I did is that they have enough room to grow on the root system, and that the roots are not competing with each other or choking each other out. So far, both the star jasmine and the tanga are a perfect match because they don't compete for root, they don't compete for nutrients, and they don't choke each other out. And that is a perfect blend. So keep that in mind when you're planting and combining plants and intertwining them together, because that's really important. And yeah, it looks gorgeous. I love it. Now, if my other star jasmine over in the corner grew really tall, it would just really frame that even more. But I really like that it trails off to the side. And then I have the star jasmine over in this corner, but that one is trailing a little behind only because it does get more shade. Now they're not equal in growth pattern, and the reason for that is because this one here gets a little bit more shaded because it gets shaded by the maple tree up here, but it still gets enough sun and it gets afternoon sun, but it does get more dampened lighting. Whereas this one right here gets more direct sun in the morning. But now let me bring you really close so you can see each individual plant because they look stunning. The star jasmine is very fragrant, and it just, to me, just adds a lot to this whole area. Look at how gorgeous that is, and look at how beautiful that clematis is. Will bloom throughout the summer and eventually will fade out, and so will the star jasmine. But the star jasmine right now is in full bloom, as you can see, and this is super fragrant. If I was to pick a flowering vine for a trellis or for a pergola, this is the perfect combination. Now, if you guys have a different one that would be just as beautiful, please let me know, because I can always create it somewhere else. But I love the combination here. Now, it can be done with any clematis. Right now I did the tango on this one's, but it's growing way up there and it's just doing its job. Now let me take you to the other side, because this one's a lot fuller, a lot bigger, and as you can see, because this is getting damper lighting on this side and this one is getting more sun in this side, that's why you see more of the flower growth here and less over here. And it could be just the way I intertwined them too. But this one, the tanga, has gotten quite tall. But this one actually is way up there. But look at how gorgeous this one is. Now this one has a little bit more of the petals in it than not, but it's still very stunning. See how tiny? See how it comes out with the petals and the bud? And then it becomes a little larger, then a little larger, until it starts getting its center bud. So that's the growth pattern there. But isn't that beautiful? I mean, you gotta love this. So that's where that is. And then, okay, you guys, that's gonna do it for me. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and most of all, you guys, thank you so much for your love and support. It means the world to me. I love your comments. I want to hear more. So you guys, don't be afraid to make comments. It is really something I look forward to, and I love being able to communicate with each and every one of you guys. And if you really enjoyed this video and like to see more of it, please give me a big like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you catch me on all my videos. And most of all, you guys, don't forget to get out and get active and build yourself some beautiful gardens, even if it's in a container. You know, a lot of plants survive containers. You may have to water them a little bit more, but they will survive. For now, I love you. I'll see you guys next time, and have a wonderful day.